if I can help it, if I can catch it this early. I don't want to be grabbed by the head anyway. So I'm going to be blocking here. It can be your forearm and it can be a little bit lower on the arm as well. This will just move around, whatever you feel is strong for you. So as he tries to grab my head, what I'm ultimately going to do is sit up and catch his arm sort of in my armpit, and then I'm going to chop down and use the thumb side of my forearm to roll, which should expose the hand. You'll find that rather than trying to manually move stuff around, if I just come in, chop real good, so I have a really good bite on his arm here, and then roll this back, that his hand will pop up for me. That is the most sort of efficient way to get into this grip. And now I've got my setup. We get to half guard, he's coming to grab my head, and I'm blocking it, and then I'm going to sit up and get a good bite on his arm. It's not a bite with my hand, you can tell. And then I'm going to roll it across my chest to put this wrist right in my hand, and I can get my figure 4 grips. He comes in to grab my head, I'm blocking, I'm going to sit up past it, bite down, and then roll it here, and then catch it here. Yeah. To finish it, I'm just going to have you guys put your foot on the ground, and instead of trying to force this from here, I'm going to have you put your foot on the ground, hip underneath them. 1, 2, 3. Just like that. That puts me here, and I should be able to finish that Kimura right there. Even when he's defending, and that is going to look like this. If I block his forearm, and then I catch it, and I roll it, and I put it in my hand, he might catch his inner thigh, or his belt or something. But yeah, inner thigh is a good strong one, and that's gi and no gi. So let's do that. So hard for me to roll this way. I can't roll this way and pull that out of there. But if I put this foot on the ground, put the foot on the ground, and hip under him, and hip under him, and hip under him, it starts to become hard to keep his hand there. So just always do the same steps. Always put that foot down, hip under, hip under, hip under to finish it, whether he grabs his leg or not. And you'll find, though, that you can go right through the defense if you do that. Be thinking about where you're putting their hand. And I say that because it's easy to think that this move is about, bending his arm into position, and then but I just put his hand where his defense is. So make sure you're aware of what defense you're giving your opponent when you do this. It's why I showed it the way I did, which, just to reiterate, I'm blocking from grabbing my head. I reach past, and his hand's not really near his belt now. And when you roll it here, it's not the same as putting the L in his arm this way. I'm just turning his shoulder over. When I turn his shoulder over, his palm comes up. So I'm trying to affect his upper arm, not his lower arm. I'm not trying to bend his lower arm. I'm trying to roll his upper arm. While he defends this from half guard, the next thing I look at is how far apart are his knees. If his knees are far apart, then I can start thinking about escaping to guard. That's what we're going to do right now. So I'm going to put my foot down, back my hip up until my knee fits in. Once my knee is in, I put my foot on the floor, and I can use my shin kind of like a crowbar to move him. But I also want to be moving me out to the side and recross. And the leverage of my whole body's movement from underneath him to out at the side of him makes it hard for him to continue to keep this grip. Okay, the hand is stuck. How far apart are his knees? So if they're far apart, I can guard escape. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to hip back, knee in, toes on the floor, and now I have a crowbar to move him over. And I'm going to keep moving me out from underneath him. That'll pull his hand out of there, and I can finish a standard guard Kimura. I'm recrossed over here and everything. The other thing that can happen is I set up my Kimura. I'm doing pretty good, but he hides his hand. And we can now look at his knees and say, okay, well, how close together or far apart are they? If they're far apart, we've seen that we can hip escape. If they're close together, it might be because he saw me trying to elbow escape. So let's say they're a little further apart than they are right now, and you feel me start to do this and start to elbow escape. You might pinch my leg. Yeah, that definitely stops my elbow escape. But you guys might see, because he's hidden his hand, and even he doesn't want to take it out and put it up here, he has no base to this angle, so I can look over my shoulder and bridge. And now I'm on top of half guard. You can decide from here if you want to try to finish this Kimura, or if you want to just go on to other things and take side control or whatever you want to do next. But I've gone from the bottom to the top, which can be a really important thing. Block, shoot and catch. He hides it, and his knees are together maybe because I started to elbow escape, and he pinches. Yeah, he's trying to stop my elbow escape. So I look over my shoulder, and now it's just a big bridge. I'm trying to hit him with my hips, and I'll roll over. He'll carry my weight for just a moment there. Wideness or tightness with the knees is a spectrum. Because it's a spectrum, and somebody might be, neither. They might be in the middle somewhere. You might initiate one of your escapes. You might initiate an elbow escape, and then they close. Or you might try to roll them, and they base. But either way, your movement can help put them in one of the extremes of the spectrum, so that one of these moves really does work. So you creating a little bit of action might cause them to do something, and then you can hit the wide knees or the narrow knees versions of these. I block the arm, and I start to set this up, and if my grip is not yet strong, and he can punch this over my head, and he gets his arm back into an orientation where I can't grab it anymore, there is no more Kimura, okay? It's over there now. So I don't want that. I don't want him to bring it past my face and escape. When he comes up here, he can't bring his hand to the other side of my head till he turns it over. He just doesn't bend that way. So he has to turn it over to go to the other side to escape. It's in the moment that I go from, in my palm, I feel the wide side of his wrist. I feel this whole wristwatch side of his wrist. When only his thumb is in my hand, yeah, this is the time to go. When he starts to go straight over my face, I can now push it toward the ceiling. So essentially when his arm is straight and his hand is facing the direction that it is, which is sort of pinky up, there's always going to be a moment on the way to here that he's pinky up. That's when I can lock it in the direction of his pinky, which is up. So I'm pulling down, just keeping a good grip on the upper arm downward and pushing up with my hand using the figure 4. Blocked his arm, started my move. It was going pretty well, but he brings it over my face. He's trying to get away this way. And this can be a quick move, so be careful. So go slow motion. He brings it over here. I'm just going to make sure I confirm my grip, and I have a good grip on my own wrist here. And while it's pinky up, I just push upwards and make sure I let him tap. It's a straight arm lock off of an attempted Kimura defense. Past my face. Catch the arm. Start to set this up. Okay, and if we go slow motion, boop, right over my face. About when I get face up is about when if I'm following his hand with my face, about when I'm face up is when that's the direction to go against the straight arm. So when we talk about bottom half guard attacks, you notice that I'm not talking about a fully set up bottom half guard, chest to chest, and I tell you this is how I attack the guy. Because this isn't the position where I'm going to have any options. Everything's all smashed up. I'm really thinking more about escaping in this moment. But if on his way down to grab my head, I block his arm, you start to see that we're in this earlier time frame that I told you about the Kimura and everything. And if we go one time frame even earlier than this, when he's maybe a little higher, I might have room to put my knee in. So this is a position that you can get into in the bottom of half guard, where you use your shin as a frame. I'm saying that I'm intentionally, not my knee, I'm not trying to use the tip of my knee, I'm trying to use some of my shin as a frame, just like this is a frame, to keep him off me. So go ahead and put a bunch of weight on me. And my legs, this is a very good frame, very easily held frame, and one that leaves both my hands free, so even better for attacks. The more he commits forward, if he's trying to turn his body or whatever people are trying to do to get around this knee shield, If his hand ever touches the ground, that can be a really great moment to go for the same Kimura that we've been going for. So go ahead, lean forward, and if his hand touches the ground in any moment, and even maybe if it doesn't, you can choose to do the Kimura, and the way I'm going to do that is the same way. I'm going to sit up and shoot my arm over, but in this case I got my shin out from between us as well. So I kick this straight, sit up, and now I'm going to roll the arm over as we have been, create my connection, and then finish, again, as we have been. Knee shield. You're going to hear the term, and this is what we mean. It's we use it in half guard here, and it makes me harder to gather. It's harder to get my head, harder to get the underhook, because I can keep him away. But people will lean on this, and when he does, if there's this option with the arm is out, I will only add the step of getting my shin out from between us to set this up, and we can finish the rest of this like a regular half guard Kimura. Here. Half guard can be the beginning of having back position if I can drag the arm. So I'm going to do an arm drag from here. You're going to hear all kinds of things over your career about where your foot should be and where your knee should be when you do a knee shield, and whether you should be really, really close or really, really far. My personal experience is that I have the most success doing the arm drag when I imagine a dotted line down my person's body and I try to stay in this hemisphere. So he's further from my chest, he's further away from me here, but it's not like it's easier for him to go around the back. There's no major sacrifice to doing this except that he has to go further if he's going to collect my head or do anything else. Also, by being on this side of his body, I just find that what they do with this hand next, sometimes they put it on me, sometimes they put this on my leg to try to push it down. Something about it puts this hand in better range for me to hit the arm drag. So that's why I'm not curled up in front of him here. I actually extended the hip here a little bit. And then when I can grab his wrist, so for example right here I can grab his wrist, now I can kick my shin straight through, and I'm actually going to look for an arm drag so that I can start to take the back. So it's a very efficient movement. In fact, the half guard for some people is their super highway to the back. So some people see half guard and think, okay, I'm almost on the back. Because you can think of this hook that I have in here as the first hook of the back if I were to make it around his body a little bit, right? So, all right, so I'm going to be here. I'm trying to keep myself, so I'm even extending at the hip. It's not just where my shoulder is on the ground. I'm also extending a little bit at the hip, and then I'm going to, when I can grab his wrist like this or like this is comfortable from here, I'm going to find his tricep in his armpit here and put his hand in my armpit. So that's the interlocking that you want. You don't want this to go over your arm. It's too easy to clear back over my head. You want it to go into your armpit, and I want mine to go into his armpit. We get a nice interlocking here. So from here, as soon as I get a grip, I can go here, pull his arm, and now I can get up and start taking the back. This first hook is already in, and my favorite way to take the back when we're here is to, and especially when his elbow's on the ground, is to think about pole vaulting his shoulder in front of his elbow, and I lean this way, and then he falls over. I can put my second hook in. I like that better than trying to throw my foot over and possibly like getting rolled off. It's climbing on is something that can be very precarious. If I control the fall, it's much easier to just take the back. So I go here, I pull this down. My fist kind of usually ends up on the ground because I just pulled this, so I can use my fist to get up. I'm going to put my harness in and hold on tight, and I'm trying to pole vault his arm, his shoulder in front of his elbow. That's usually when people fall to that corner. And I'm able to bring this hook over and take a full back position. Setup is be off to one side. I'm looking for this wrist, and I want to interlock armpits here and pull this. My fist is usually near the ground, so I'll use that to get up. Also, when I get up, I flare my knee. So I'm in kind of a pigeon pose right now. Put this in, and now I add all my weight cascading over the shoulder toward the elbow so that he falls over the corner of the body, and I put this foot in. Sometimes you run into a guy who, when you fall here, he brings his knee to his chest, so it's harder to put my hook in. But even then, I can usually put my heel at the hip, and like I'm kick-starting a bike, I can put that in. Here. So to set up the lockdown, it's always the outside. This is the inside leg because it's in between his feet, in between his legs. Outside leg steps over. Inside leg steps over my foot first, over mine, under his. And then I flex my feet and I extend my legs. So I have right here a really nice grip. And Chris, try to get your foot out of there. It's very difficult, especially if you don't have any like sort of lockdown escapes in your repertoire. So again, to set up lockdown, outside in, inside, over mine, under his. So I do me first and then him. I'll flex both so that I get a purchase on him and on myself, and then extend. Okay. This is the kind of pressure that some people might even tap out to. So be careful when you practice this for the first few times with people. We're just trying to control the leg. Outside in, I go over mine and under his. I flex my toes and I extend. So if he had been sort of smashing my head, this was on here, he's giving me like shoulder pressure. When I put this together, he can no longer smash my head. I've given myself breathing room, my chest can expand, so life got a lot better. So now that we know the lockdown can be one of the leg configurations that we can use for our earlier half guard Kimuras. In fact, it's probably one of the strongest ones. So he's trying to grab my head. I'm blocking, I decide to go for the Kimura. I start setting up, he defends. So this disappears in here somewhere. And I'm going to use, in this case, the lockdown. So I'm kind of pushing on his Achilles to open this up a little bit to get this foot in. And then I'm gonna go over mine and under his. This is all just standard lockdown setup. And then I'm gonna extend this leg and start hipping out. And this is what happens. They will fall over either their shoulder or their elbow. And when I get far enough around that with one foot I can kind of do the double wrap, now I can base on this leg and pull this the rest of the way up and turning on my side to finish the Kimura.